I remember feeling like the temperature dropping drastically, as well as this overwhelming feeling of pure horror and dread, like something really bad was about to happen. And as our poundings on the door got more frantic, the door flew open with Kara on the other side of the door staring at us in annoyance and confusion, and we pushed past her, causing her to stumble back, and I slammed the garage door and instantly locking it, and all three of us stood there in stunned silence, the only sound being Lori and I's labored panting when Carrie yelled, "What the hell are you guys screaming about?" And Lori and I tried to explain to her what happened. Well, we tried anyways. It was difficult at first because we both were bawling our eyes out, to which she thought we were playing a joke on her, but as we kept insisting, she still didn't believe us. Lori to this day still doesn't like talking about it. All I know is that as soon as her dad got home, she made him take the doll out to the dumpster that very day. I may have said this before, but me and my brother have had a paranormal experience. Well, I am sure of it. So I was about 3-4 and my great aunt, grandmother, and mother were in the living room. From that room you could see the entire backyard. We also had one of those remote gates that moved from side to side. I have no idea what I was doing at the time, but I looked at the gate due to it moving. No one was meant to arrive, and it could only be opened with a remote, which only my mother and father had. That was impossible, however, due to the remote was hanging up in a cupboard. There was a man standing there. I have the description from my mother. He had orangish hair with scruffy hat and brown pants and jacket. No one else saw them, but they began to walk into the backyard. I was trying to tell my mother, but she said nothing was there. My great aunt and grandmother both reacted the same way. Around 3-4 years later, I said to my grandmother, "When you die, can you not haunt me?" Ever since I have not had a paranormal encounter. This is a bit of a boring one, but it will do. I was in a holiday in the US, staying in a supposedly famous haunted hotel. I was asleep, woke up, went to pee, left the bathroom, sat back down on my bed, and suddenly felt really hot, like boiler room hot. Then I looked up. I was looking at my feet or something, and there was a dude there, just standing there looking at me. The door was closed. I didn't hear anyone come in, and there he was, just standing there. I freaked out and jumped from my bed into the other bed next to me, and then I looked back at the wall and it was gone. As a skeptic, I keep telling myself that maybe I was half asleep and just imagined it or something, but I am certain it happened. Super weird. I've gone on a few ghost tours with friends etc., and I am literally the only one who ever has mild experiences. Even though I am the biggest skeptic and I don't really think it's real, I think there are alternate explanations. I sometimes joke that ghosts keep choosing me to use their energy to reach out to, only to discover I am an asshole. Back when I was around 3 or 4 years old, my mom and I woke up to what we thought was a huge earthquake that made our queen bed with 4-inch wooden frames shake violently side to side. I slept beside my mom back when my dad worked in a different country. It was way past midnight and the only light we had was the one coming from the stairs right outside our bedroom. We were on the 2nd floor. We don't really close the door because I used to hate sleeping in the dark, so at least the stair lights bled into our bedroom a bit. We also had a spare room that we rented out to one of my uncle's friends. The 2 rooms' doors were situated in front of each other and the stairs were in the landing between those doors. Just to give you a visual, after the shaking stopped, the phone downstairs rang. We saw someone pass by in front of our room toward the stairs, and after a few seconds, the phone stopped ringing. We assumed it was our tenant who went down and answered the phone. Then as my mom was just about to get out to check on things downstairs, she almost bumped into our tenant who went out of his room. She asked if he felt the earthquake and if he was the one who answered the phone. He said no, he didn't feel any earthquake, and that's the first time he was coming out of his room since he got home that afternoon. Big Bill didn't even realize it back then how unusual that experience was. Thanks for watching. Don't leave before leaving a like to this video. Also hit the subscribe button to support my work. And as always, have a horrific nightmare, my dear. What is the scariest paranormal story you have ever experienced? I live in Vermont, pretty close to the Canadian border, and my family owns a good chunk of a mountain behind our house. I've always loved hiking up our mountain and camping out, but after several instances of being far too close for comfort with coyotes and bears at night, I decided to build a small shack for camping in. I built it in my freshman year of high school, and it certainly was nothing to write home about. It was basically a log cabin made from only moose maple, which sick for building with, and completely encased in roofing to prevent rain from blowing through the cracks between logs. That's the backstory. The camp became a pretty popular spot for my friends and I to hang out, shoot guns, and blow stuff up because it was 10 miles away from any significant settlement. While it was was certainly liberating being in the middle of nowhere. We all knew it was on us to get to safety as any of us got injured up there. Anyways, I'll start with the story. I asked one of my close friends to go on a campout on a Friday night after school. We'd been friends since middle school, so he had been up there multiple times before. After hiking up and roasting some hot dogs on a fire while listening to some chill music. It was dark. Whenever it gets dark on these campouts, you can always hear wildlife. I thought running around the woods surrounding the fire. I always thought it was creepy. But after a long time with no bad encounters with wildlife, I felt pretty okay with the situation every night I was up there. And it more or less just became a neat occurrence while camping out. I always was armed with some sort of gun going up there for protection, so I never felt that scared. Anyways, after having our fill, we decided to go into the camp and get some sleep. In the camp 10x12, there was one homemade bunk bed, some floor space, and countertop, and a small wood cook stove. I took top bunk, and my friend took the bottom. We both fell asleep pretty quickly, but awoke simultaneously at what I would guess was around 1 a.m. to the sound of a church choir right outside the camp. It sounded like 30-40 people singing, and it was resonating inside my head. I could distinctly make out some Latin words, but I could never piece together what was being said. I turned down to my friend and asked if his phone was on, and he said it was dead. The creepiest part about this after reflecting on it was that we were perfectly calm. If anything, it was super soothing, and eventually, we both fell asleep. In the morning, we both checked around the camp, and saw no signs of anyone, let alone 40 people. We were 10 miles away from a town. To this day, I have no clue what happened, but I commonly refer to the singing as the angels because of how angelic it sounded. I think about it all the time, but it hasn't happened to me again since. I am just glad I have someone to corroborate the story with, or else people would think I am insane. This is something I've never been able to rationalize. For months after my dad died, we were getting landline calls where no one would answer on the other end. This was in 2002, so, while robocallers were a thing, it definitely wasn't as prevalent as it is today. But we did assume they were probably wrong numbers or something. We didn't have any phones that displayed caller ID at the time. Well, one time, after getting yet another call with only silence on the other end, I jokingly said, "Dad, if that's you, call my cell phone." I want to preface this by saying I rarely ever got calls on my cell phone, and never spam calls in those days. I was 18 with an unlisted number that only my family and a few friends had. Just a few minutes later, my phone rang with a number I'd never seen before. With what I just said fresh in my mind, I kind of freaked out and didn't answer. I was on my way out to go somewhere with my mom, so when we got in the car, I told her what happened.